All right, welcome, Drink with James, episode 43. Still cold in Manhattan. I feel like I've been complaining about the weather probably the last 3 episodes, right? I will continue complaining about the weather until it changes. I think that if there is a God, he probably values my opinion more than most. So I'm assuming if I can just keep complaining about it, maybe something will happen. Speaking of gods and demigods, things of that nature, Drake's album, what can we learn from that, right? So Drake came out with a new album, or playlist as he was calling it. I think it's way too long. I think Drake's last few albums have been way too long. I think what we can all learn from this is that a lot of times a little bit of editing can go a long way. My favorite album of all time is My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. I think it has 12 songs on it. Drake's has 22 songs. What are the chances that there are 22 good Drake songs that Drake can come up with in a given amount of time? Not really that big. I think if he cuts that down to 10 to 13 songs, it's a great album. As it is, it's bloated and not so good. So I think lesson for all of us is to edit down and to really take a hard look at the things that we're producing and asking if they're really good and worth publishing, or if you're just bored and you want to hit send on Instagram, or I guess it's share now. So those are lessons from Drake. Well, from me, but about Drake. Is there a positive takeaway from the Drake album? I think is know thyself. You know, Drake, I think, has a pretty good understanding of who he is and where he fits in the whole lexicon of music and everything. And he doesn't generally try and be something he's not. He just makes Drake songs over and over and over again. You know, you look at Kanye West or Radiohead, any number of bands that have had a good amount of longevity in their career, they kind of change all the time. You know, every Radiohead album is very different. Every Kanye West album is quite different. Every Drake album is basically the same, or it's variations on a theme. That's not bad, you know, he's consistent. And I think that like what he probably understands is that he isn't the kind of artist that maybe Radiohead or Kanye West as they are. And so for him, it's not as important to keep innovating over and over and over again. He just give them Drake because that's what they want. So I think that's, you know, important to kind of realize. And yeah, there you go. So do's and don'ts of the reaching out to PR. I think this was specifically talking about reaching out, trying to get comped trips or go on influencer trips. It was talking about that video we did, 10 tips to slay your next influencer trip, which Tim will put up over here. I think, and maybe I've said this before, but I generally think that a lot of times people overestimate the hand that they're holding when they come to a negotiating table. I think the key to having the key to a successful negotiation, to getting what you want, is to understanding your value and understanding what you're gonna be able to offer that brand, and being really honest and upfront and transparent about that. You can't come in with 15,000 followers and ask the St. Regis to comp you a room for 4 nights because you're going to give them all this exposure. Just in the same way that when a brand reaches out to you and they have, you know, 5,000 Instagram followers and you have 100,000 and they're not going to pay you, but they're like, it's going to be really good exposure for you. You're kind of like, what are you talking about? That doesn't make sense. So flip that around when you are negotiating. Make sure you understand kind of where you sit and what your value is, and pitch something that you think is going to be reasonable, because without a relationship, if you just pitch someone cold and you ask for something ridiculous, they're never going to answer your email. Because if you want this, and let's say they're willing to give you this, but they don't know you, they don't have a reason to try and bridge that gap, and you say, hey, I want St. Regis, I want 4 free nights for 2 Instagram posts. Maybe they're willing to give you a press rate for 2 nights if you do, you know, a blog post and give them, you know, do 4 Instagrams and a blog post and you give them a bunch of content. But for them to get from what they're willing to give to where you're at and what you're asking for, it's too big of a chasm to kind of jump over. And so you need to come in at a reasonable place if you don't have a relationship with the brand and say, hey, here's what I think I can do for you. What do you think you could do for me? Are you interested in this at all? So yeah, start off, and anytime you can kind of start off smaller and expand that relationship is going to be better than just coming in and saying, this is exactly what I want. Please give it to me. Because it can come off, sometimes it can come off as just like, hey, I want a free vacation. Which for a brand, maybe they're not super stoked about giving you that. So again, we've talked about all this stuff before. Understanding what are their goals. What do you think the resort is trying to accomplish? Do you have access to an audience that they really do want to get in touch with, and maybe they're struggling to do that, and you can help them do that? Can you shoot photos for them for use on their social? Like, there's a lot of different things you can do, but don't just come in and ask for the world and expect to get it. I think a lot of hotels run this kind of thing through a PR agency. And so if you are looking to travel more and you're looking to get comp trips and things like that, you generally are probably going to work with PR firms. I think what's important there is, again, understanding that you're building a relationship. And if you are a PR, say you work at a travel PR firm, you have 10 clients, and one of them is this incredible hotel, and the other 9 are pretty nice, but they're not as nice. You come in and you're asking for a comp stay at the incredible hotel, but that PR person, they probably have no problem getting coverage on that hotel. It's the 9 other ones that they need help with. So again, I think it's understanding how you can make the person that you're speaking to look good at their job, and maybe start by saying, hey, okay, here's my ultimate goal. I'm going on my honeymoon in 2 years, or a year, whatever the fuck you're doing, I don't know. I want to stay at that hotel for my honeymoon. It's the Four Seasons Bora Bora or something, okay? I am willing to help you if we can get there. So, okay, you have this new hotel in Richmond that's really trying to get some traction. How about I go down to Richmond? I'll do a stay there. I'll promote it. I'll do a blog post, blah, blah, blah. You need to kind of go to bat for them before they go to bat for you. First of all, you're getting offers for people to sign you. Congratulations. That's a big step, and I think for a lot of influencers, like a big goalpost in their path of success is getting to the point where they have an agent. And agents, generally how they work as a kind of overview, you have an agency. Each agent maybe reps 5 to 15 different people. And they can kind of handle all of your inbound requests and negotiating your deals and organizing the ones that go through and organizing the contracts and chasing payments and all of that stuff. The good agents also have their own relationships, so they can help you achieve your goals. So if you say, hey, I really want to work with Tiffany's and Cartier, and I want to go to my honeymoon to Bora Bora, they can kind of hopefully put you in the path to get there, introduce you to the right people, tell you the things that you need to be doing. So they should hopefully be a kind of career coach, as well as a facilitator, as well as a negotiator and an admin. So they kind of do all of those things, and for that, you give them 15 to 30% of every dollar that you make. So it's a lot of money, maybe less when you're starting out. But you think about big influencers, that it's not uncommon to be making $1 million a year. Now, do you want to give away $200,000 to $300,000 a year for someone to answer your email? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But it's important to think about that, because if you start with an agent when you're here, you're probably not going to drop them as you grow. So I think it's certainly a valid and worthwhile thing to do and to look at. But in the long term, it gets very, very expensive. And I think a lot of the top influencers start bringing their teams in-house and just hiring people to do it for them and kind of running everything themselves. I know Kiara does a really good job of that, and a bunch of other influencers. So there's that to think about. I think the main thing to be conscious of, and I won't say weary, but conscious of, is that all of a sudden somebody else becomes a public-facing part of your company, and by extension, you. So if you get an email from a brand and you don't answer it, that's on you. If you get an email from a brand and you send back something rude, that's you, that's your fault. But now when you have an agent, if they don't answer the email, or if they are rude to somebody, or if they're making ridiculous requests on your behalf, it reflects poorly on you, but it's not you doing it. So you really have to think about, is this person somebody that I want out there representing my brand and saying that I am a mouthpiece for this person? This is like your Sean Spicer, essentially, right? And it's like, is that somebody that you want representing you? And I would take a really long, hard look at the person and the agency and say, do I think that this person can do a better job or nearly as good a job, selling my brand and your vision of the world to brands? And are they going to work really hard for you, as hard as you're going to work? Or do they have 15 other clients, and those 15 other clients are all bigger than you, and so they're busy, and you get 5 hours a week of their time, and they're fielding inbound requests for you, but that's not that hard to do. So it's a big decision that you should definitely think about. But I know a lot of influencers who are just they're artistically minded and they don't want to deal with the business side. They never want to learn the business side. They don't have any interest in it. And I think for them, an agency is probably a good way to go. I think it probably makes sense. But if you enjoy the business side of things, if you're competent in that, if you think you can maybe train somebody to help you, I would encourage you to potentially go that route, because one, you have more control over who that person is, how they're speaking to brands, and how they're representing your brand, and in the long run, you're going to save a lot of money. Because if you hire someone, even if they're making $100,000 a year, if you get up to that place where you're making $1 million, you're saving a good amount of money. We were talking in this last answer about how, you need to look and see if you have access to a group of people that brand is trying to gain access to but has a hard time with. This is a perfect example of that. Let's say you're an influencer in, one of the flyover states. You're somewhere in the Midwest, and you come from a smaller city, but you're one of the most followed influencers in that space. I think that people trust people that remind them of themselves a lot of times, right? And so as a brand, if I'm trying to speak to a Midwestern customer, I'm not going to use an LA surfer girl, right? If I'm trying to speak to a Southern customer, I'm not going to use someone who lives in New York necessarily. So I think the great thing about influencers in this space is that brands can get super targeted in the people that they work with and the way that they target different groups of customers. So if you are in a city that's not one of the major big 5 or 10 cities in the country, I actually think that you can use that to an advantage if you can weave a story that says, hey, I am one of the most respected and most followed influencers in this kind of smaller niche, and I know it's probably important for you to hit this niche, and I know it's probably harder for you to do that. But here's the way that I can do it. Here's how I can work with you, and here's what I think that you'll get. So I think, yes, it is frustrating because you won't get as many opportunities because you're not in those big cities, so you just don't have the benefit of proximity and being close to these brands and to other influencers and to the events and all of these types of things that can help you build relationships. I would obviously tell you and encourage you as you grow to travel to LA or New York with some frequency to try and gain that proximity and get the benefits of that. But I do think you can weave a story and try and turn what could be a perceived weakness into a strength. And I think that that's definitely possible. So that is it for the show. We have the next one you're going to see after this. I'm super excited about. We're going to get out of the conference room. We're going to get someone who is better looking and more charming than me, I believe it or not. We also have a couple cool little projects coming down the pipeline that y'all might be able to engage with or do something with. So if you're not following Fohr on social, do it over here, wherever it is. There'll be some kind of fun announcements coming in the coming weeks. And as always, send the questions in, ask them in the comments, send me an email, send Tim an email. I don't know. I lost it. We're out.